Welcome, everyone, to the Ready for the Draft podcast. I am your host, Gregg Schutze. This is episode 7 of the 2024 podcast series, where we take a look at the draft-eligible prospects and get you ready for the NFL draft. Week 0 already in the books, and frankly, this recording is taking place on Thursday, August 31st, after the first set of games for the first full weekend of week 1 of the college football season. So we've got a lot of games that we want to go ahead and get through, talk about what I've seen. Also want to start touching on some of the group of 5 teams and really what we could take a look at. I'll tell you what, week 0, we got to see USC and Notre Dame, a couple of ranked teams, got to see a couple of conference matchups. Really, the showcase was Conference USA. 7 total games. So let's jump into those games, really talk through what we saw. And I'll tell you what, we have to start off with the USC San Jose State game. And the Trojans, look, they took care of business. This was a game that I think was a little bit closer early on. First half, a 7-point game. I don't think people were really expecting to see that from the Trojans. I think the defense was still a little suspect, some questionable moments there, but then you get Caleb Williams, really, just another day at the office for him. 18-25, 278 yards, 4 touchdowns. This is a guy, look, the 76-yard touchdown pass to Taj Washington. The ball hits him in the hands and he fumbles it. Ultimately, Caleb Williams said that there was a bruise in his hand, so when the ball hit his hand, it ultimately he wasn't able to grasp it, but then he picks up the football and looks downfield, sees the corner and the safety with Taj Washington behind them, and the torque with his ability, as he's moving to the right and kind of fading away, to be able to still get that ball around with pressure in his face so he can't really step into it and still throw the ball 50-plus yards in the air. Taj Washington runs underneath that, makes the catch, and takes off for the touchdown. Was just a tremendous play. You see the arm strength, you see the overall talent, the arm talent, the physical ability was definitely on display there from Caleb Williams. One of the things that I really liked was the fact that he was able to go through his progressions. You saw him going off of that primary receiver a little bit more. You really liked his ability to sidestep, linebackers blitzing up the middle, rolling out, keeping his eyes down the field. Didn't always just lock on to his guy all the time, which I really appreciated. I think too often he was locking on to the primary receiver, really wouldn't get off of him. And now he's able to show that he can do that and move on to the secondary receivers. And, really with Caleb Williams, like I said, another day at the office. He made it look easy. Really, very comfortable performance. I thought, there was a bad sack that he took. Sitting there in the pocket, ultimately wasn't able to step up because the defensive tackle really collapsed the interior of that line, and then Jonah Monheim getting beat off the edge by Trey Smith at the same time, so he really didn't have anywhere to go and ended up taking a really bad sack deep in their territory. But outside of that, I think Caleb Williams, USC, they got off to a good start. Now they'll be taking on Nevada in the Coliseum on Saturday. So we'll see if they can improve upon that performance. I'll tell you what, the offensive line, I thought, struggled at times. This was a group that we saw so many different, I think there was like 8-10 guys that played, so many different lineups there. And I think that's really where the Trojans struggled at times to really build any chemistry up front. Tonight I watched UCF and their offensive line, and they had 3 new starters, and they really looked a lot more fluid, like they had been playing together for a long time. Something that we just didn't see out of USC, and I think John Henson, the offensive line coach, is definitely going to want to improve in that area for sure. When you watch Jonah Monheim, this is the left tackle, a guy that they moved over from the right side, and they said, all right, this is the guy that we're going to have out here. And I thought that there were times where he struggled with the speed of Trey Smith, the defensive end, a guy who I think is actually a pro prospect. He showed an ability that he wasn't going to panic, get his hands under the pad level, able to control the point of attack and ride the defensive end away from the pocket. But there were also times where he was just beaten. The foot speed just wasn't there. He needs to do a better job of getting out on that kick slide, beating that edge rusher to the edge. Because once he did that, you saw the punch at the point of attack. You saw his ability to really stand the defensive end up when he got the hands in under that pad level. The hand placement I thought was really good. Will wind up hand fighting at times, reset those hands back under the pad level. So I thought the hands really did well there as well. Did get called for a hold as Caleb Williams was leaving the pocket. Trey Smith giving him a hard time, tried to get off his block, and the hands really kept inside and didn't need to grab him because Caleb Williams was going to outrun him anyway. I thought he did a great job pulling around, looked very athletic, able to seal off the linebacker, to spring Austin Jones on a 37-yard run. So I thought that was there, but I just think that Jonah Monheim, the growing pains. He didn't give up a sack at all at right tackle, really looked a lot more complete and struggled at times in this game for sure. The center, Justin Dedich, this is a guy that, again, he's the emotional leader. 37th game. This was a guy that I thought did a really good job holding the point of attack, the snap, and then the hands right under the pad level. Really good leverage. You saw some good leg drive in the run game, able to drive the defensive tackle, especially in goal line situations. 2-yard touchdown by Austin Jones, really able to clear out the space for him. Dorian Singer, the receiver, wanted to see just how they were going to spread the love around. There were some guys that didn't see the ball thrown their way nearly as often as others. But what I liked with Dorian Singer was he looks the part. He was able to separate from the corner on a post, flattens out the route, able to catch the pass right out in front of him, turn up the field for a 13-yard touchdown. Ran another post to start the second half, flattens out again on that route, cutting inside, off the corner, another 16-yard catch, able to extend the ball low and away as well. So I think the body control, the catch radius, those are things that jumped off when you watched him at Arizona, and you see that again here with USC. 4 catches, 41 yards, and a touchdown. Mario Williams didn't get a ton of looks his way. Just 2 catches for 26 yards. Did have the ball go through his hands on a short throw, so a concentration drop there. But later on, runs down the seam from the slot, wide open, extends for the pass. Really a little high, but was able to extend for that ball. 30-yard gain on a 4th and 3 play. So you were able to see that hook up there between Williams and Williams. And obviously when you talk about USC, you talk about the passing game. You see Zachariah Branch and how special he can be, and then on the kick return, he looks so much like Reggie Bush. This is a guy who's a true freshman playing in his first collegiate game. 96-yard kickoff return. Really changed speeds. You saw him kind of slow play things at first, and then the explosiveness to really just that sudden acceleration to take it to the house, and then the cut back at the sideline a la Reggie Bush against Fresno State back in the day. I think USC has something special there. The running backs, Austin Jones had a couple of touchdowns. I thought what you saw out of Marshawn Lloyd was the ability to bring some physicality to his runs, being able to get downhill, the leg drive, being able to run through contact. And then with Austin Jones, ran with a good forward lean, patient to wait for the pulling offensive lineman. You'd see him make a catch in the flat, physical to finish, so showing off the versatility there. So I thought the running backs looked solid for the Trojans as well. When you get to the defensive side of the football, obviously there's some work that still needs to be done defensively. That's going to be the big struggle for them, and I think that's something that they're going to have to continue to build upon. I think Alex Grinch just got way too complicated. There was a blown coverage, and really was trying to run an inverted cover 2, and just really didn't need to do that down by the goal line, especially you've got Max Williams, a guy that I think really didn't have any business trying to cover the big receiver Nick Nash on the outside. 6'3" guy, converted quarterback, a guy that I think actually brings a nice skill set to the position, especially with them being without Justin Lockhart. But there were some good things, I think, for sure. Obviously, you've got some of the underclassmen. Anthony Lucas looks like he's going to be a terror off the edge. Had a couple of tackles for loss. Bear Alexander just seemed to live in the backfield, getting quick penetration, using the hands really well, flushing Chevin Cordero. The problem was as he flushed Chevin Cordero from the pocket, the spy that they had, which was Mason Cobb, the transfer from Oklahoma State, he just wasn't fast enough to get to the edge. Chevan Cordeiro was beating him time and time again. He just wasn't fast enough, and I think that's the thing that's really going to be the Achilles heel there for Mason Cobb. This is a guy that I think can scrape over the top and be able to get outside, but when he's actually asked to chase down a quarterback or chase down a guy with speed, he just doesn't have the speed in that second gear to be able to do that. He's much better coming downhill and allowing him to do that than having to cover sideline to sideline. That's really where I think he struggled at times. I thought that Jaleel Muhammad looked pretty good rushing the quarterback. That was something that we were wanting to see. I wasn't sure. This guy was a converted quarterback at one point, the transfer from Georgia State. Runs by the left tackle backside, hits Chevan Cordeiro as he's trying to throw. There was a throw into the boundary, able to beat the block on the perimeter and wrap up the ball carrier short of the first down as well. You just saw nice speed, consistent speed coming off the edge. He's 6'1", 250 pounds. So he's one of those hybrid types. Is he really a defensive end, a guy that can put his hand in the dirt? Probably not. But one of the things that I do like is that ability to get after the passer as one of those stand-up defensive ends. That's something that I think definitely jumps out to me. And then there's Kalen Bullock, the 6'3", 185-pound safety. This was a guy that on the back end, 50 coverage snaps according to Pro Football Focus, just one catch allowed, -6 yards. And this was a guy, too, that was coming downhill. You saw him take out the legs of the running back, Kyrie Robinson, keeping him 1 yard shy of a first down. Kalen Bullock, to me, is going to be one of the top 3 or 4 safeties in the draft should he decide to come out. You see the ball skills, obviously, from last year, but being able to put everything together, show more coverability, show more of the physicality in the run game. I think he's becoming a much more complete player on the back end for the Trojans. Now, San Jose State, I'll tell you what, Brent Brennan has a team that, they were gutty. I thought that Chevan Cordeiro, threw for 198 yards, 3 touchdowns, also 52 yards on the ground. Did end up fumbling in the game, so ball security is a little bit of a concern. But this was a guy that I thought, all the games that he played, 47 total games, definitely showed up. A guy that I thought, the athleticism, allowing himself to buy some additional time. You saw his ability to manipulate the pocket a little bit. You saw some touch, especially on a fade to Nick Nash, the big 6'3" receiver. Chevan Cordeiro is not a guy that's going to get drafted. Let's make no mistake about that. But he's a guy that I think could end up working his way onto a roster, whether it's on a practice squad or potentially being a third quarterback on a team. I think the veteran presence is absolutely there. This is a guy that I think moving to San Jose State from Hawaii was probably the best thing for Chevan Cordeiro. And keep an eye out for this offense. They're going to get Justin Lockhart back, as I said. Nick Nash is starting to really emerge on the outside as a receiver. And then Kyrie Robinson, 9 carries, just 28 yards, but did have the touchdown. He's a small guy, diminutive running back, but a guy that showed some explosiveness, a guy that will run through contact at times, the ability to get outside. I think San Jose State's a team that could contend in the Mountain West Conference. But the guy for me that was really my favorite player to watch for the Spartans on the outside, that was Trey Smith. And Trey Smith is a guy that actually looks like an NFL prospect. He's 6'5", 255 pounds. He's a guy that is draft eligible. He may decide that he wants to come back, but you watch the handwork. His ability to work off of Jonah Monheim's block, as I said, forced the hold as Caleb Williams was getting out of the pocket, fires off the ball, gets his hands into the chest of Monheim, drove him all the way back to Caleb Williams, and that was when the linebacker was able to shoot inside and was able to get the sack with him. Uses the hands again. The hands were active and often using those to get to Caleb Williams. There was a 3rd and 8 play earlier in the game, took an inside rush, shot the gap between the right tackle Michael Tarquin and the right guard Jarrett Kingston, straight to Caleb Williams, forced an intentional grounding and a punt. I'll tell you what, with USC, Michael Tarquin, Jarrett Kingston, the newcomers from Florida and Washington State, respectively, I thought the two of them struggled. Michael Tarquin ultimately had Mason Murphy taking over for him. And with Jarrett Kingston, he didn't even start. It was Gino Quinones. We also saw that Emmanuel Pregnon saw some time at right guard. There's a freshman starting at left guard, Alani Noah, a guy who's an absolute beast, is going to be a stud for the Trojans. I thought Tarquin, I thought Kingston, both seniors, both guys that played well for their respective programs. They came into this game, and I thought they struggled to really hold up. And I thought Trey Smith really did well for himself, a guy that looks like a stud, and I'm really excited to see what he can do in Mountain West play. Now you get to Notre Dame, and obviously this was the first game of the season, playing in Dublin, Ireland, Aviva Stadium. I mean, you want to talk about a facility. That place is absolutely gorgeous. And then obviously you've got the quarterback, Sam Hartman. Now, Sam Hartman, the transfer from Wake Forest, this is a guy, look, over 13,000 career passing yards. Comes in, though, team captain as a grad transfer. This guy, over 3,500 career snaps going into the game. You see the experience. This is a guy that, the poise under pressure, really didn't, there was a free rusher that hit him, hit him in the back, reads off the corner versus the out route, delivers a strike to the receiver. As he was delivering the football, there was a touch throw to Jayden Greathouse to beat the corner up the field, drops it in right over the shoulder with the linebacker right at his feet, was able to put that ball, the touch throws. That's one of the things. He doesn't have the best arm strength, but he has tremendous touch. You see the pocket presence, his ability to work through his progressions. That's something that I think was absolutely there. This is a guy, look, he'll get himself drafted. And when you think of Brock Purdy, you think of a guy who, Mr. Irrelevant to the starting quarterback there for the 49ers. And the reason why they ended up trading Trey Lance, obviously Sam Darnold in there as the backup quarterback as well. But with Brock Purdy, there was a ton of veteran ability there at Iowa State, the veteran presence, a lot of games played, just a very intelligent quarterback, not the biggest arm by any means, would get himself into trouble at times because that offensive line wouldn't always hold up. You saw the same thing with Sam Hartman at Wake Forest. And I look at Sam Hartman and I feel, some of those similarities there with Brock Purdy. I think Purdy might be a better athlete than Hartman, but look, Hartman, just a great story. Had that genetic defect in his thyroid. There's a scar in his neck, caused an abscess to grow right around his left clavicle, which had the shoulder scar tissue. The damage caused a blood clot in his ribs over time. Had the surgery, which caused him to miss games early on in the season last year. He's back. He's healthy. And I think Sam Hartman's a guy that, looking forward to the season, I think if Notre Dame wants to compete for a potential playoff berth, Sam Hartman's going to have to be the guy. And I look at Hartman. He may not be the first quarterback. The second may not even be the eighth quarterback taken. But like Brock Purdy, he's the guy that I think, with the right system and the right offense, we could see Sam Hartman starting for an NFL franchise sooner rather than later. In the backfield, Audric Estime, 5'11", 227 pounds. This is a guy, I thought he was very patient as a runner for his blockers. Tough to bring down once those shoulders are square. Excellent contact balance. The vision to read his blocks on the outside and cut inside the receivers as well. Showed decent hands out of the backfield. Some ball security. There's some trouble fumbling last year. Did fumble in this game as well. But, man, once this guy gets downhill, once he squares those shoulders, he's so physical, so tough to bring down. He was an interesting, it was a lot of fun to watch, number 7. And then Joe Alt, there at that left tackle spot. Such an easy mover in pass protection. Stays low and climbing to the second level as well. So that's one of the things that you'll see a lot of times. Pad level will creep up. You're standing upright and you really can't make a block on a guy. He was able to climb to the second level, stay under control, stay low, and be able to be effective in space. Very good lateral agility. The hand placement under the pad level generates a lot of movement. Slides inside on the defensive end, then has the defensive tackle looping around on the stunt. Really quick change of direction skills, lateral agility, easily picks them up. Just very easy, very patient with his hands. Shoots them inside when he needs to, and uses that length to his advantage. Going up against Navy, you weren't going to be really tested, but it was really nice to see that athleticism really on display. Defensively for Notre Dame, I mean, the guys that I was watching, J.D. Bertrand, the linebacker, 6'1", 232, 190 tackles in his career, led the team in tackles the last 2 seasons. Wraps up really well, team captain. The speed to the perimeter, I think he takes really good angles, but I think he has average speed laterally, and that was something that I think got exposed at times. Jack Kaiser, 6'1", 232 as well. This is a guy that flew around, made a lot of plays, would shoot in off the edge and run down ball carriers. But he also hit the slot back, Brandon Chapman, up high, running back able to shake free for 4 yards. He's got to drop that launch point, if you will, really be able to wrap up and not to hit the target so high. At the next level, they're just going to run right through that, and we still saw that with Brandon Chapman as well. If you look at Navy, Daba Fofana had a fumble in the game, did have 32 yards, a guy that showed his ability to get to the perimeter, but this was a team that was just outclassed and outmatched. The offensive line up front really struggled. They couldn't throw the ball very well, just 3 yards passing there for Vi Lavatai. This was a team that, again, very overmatched. I think Navy's going to struggle to win a lot of games. They do have the triple option, but this is a team, again, I didn't see enough from them to make me say, yeah, this is a team that's going to win 6 games and become bowl eligible. Now, you had Jacksonville State, their first game in FBS, taking on UTEP at home, and Jacksonville State 17-14 winners. I was a little bit surprised at the outcome with this game, but I'll tell you, Zion Webb running the Rich Rod offense. You saw the explosiveness, a guy that has really good speed. They're not going to be a huge threat throwing the football. Just 67 yards passing for Zion. Really the guy that I was most interested in was the redshirt sophomore corner, Derek Carter. Good cover corner on the outside. This is a guy that would turn and run with the receiver, Kelly Akayari. Beaten by a step, ball put over the receiver's shoulder, stayed calm, didn't panic, gets a hand in, breaks up the pass on a third and 1 play, comes downhill as the running back for UTEP, Deion Hankins, tried to make a lateral cut, bounces to the outside, able to wrap him up for no gain. I really liked his skill set. He was a guy that I thought, like I said, physical coming downhill, but then also the ability to drop into coverage and make plays on the football. I think they're going to have a good one there in Derek Carter. UTEP, Gavin Hardison has the arm strength and has the ability, but there were a lot of just poor decisions that were made. Tried to fit passes into windows that just weren't there. I thought he struggled at times, and obviously it showed. Deion Hankins, the running back, 54 yards and a touchdown on the game. The leg drive just keeps churning out yards. He's got these huge legs, squats 660 pounds. He's not super elusive, lacks the top-end gear, but the dude added 15 pounds of muscle in the offseason, so definitely a load to bring down. You see the burst. That's really the biggest thing. He's got a burst to hit the hole, not very agile laterally, tries to bounce it outside, but he's unable to slip the tackles to try to get that bounce. But as he's coming downhill, once he gets that big body moving at 6 foot, 226 pounds, he's coming downhill in a hurry. He's a redshirt junior, so expect him to be back there at UTEP. Wanted to see what Tyron Smith, their little 5'7", 170-pound receiver, was going to do. Over 1,600 yards and 11 touchdowns in his career. Transferred to A&M before coming back to the program. Showed he was able to go down and get the ball toward the sideline, but just 5 catches for 38 yards. Never really got a chance to be explosive. Really the best draft prospect for UTEP is Prince Amewule. He's 6'3", 250 pounds. I thought he did a decent job at times setting the edge in the run game. You saw the speed off the edge. He actually threw the left tackle, Will Osteen, aside, got straight to the quarterback for a sack on the first drive of the game. But here's the thing, decent setting the edge at the beginning of the game, but he really struggled in that area throughout. They started to run right at him. Didn't really take advantage of his quickness, to chase down a running back because it was coming right at him. And so I thought that was really a nice game plan there by Rich Rod. It's one of those things to where, he beats the left tackle off the ball, runs the arc, beats that, really didn't get a hand on him, uses the hand to clear, nearly gets a hit on the quarterback. So you saw some flashes of him turning the corner, getting to the quarterback. Like I said, he did have a sack, but anytime that running back would try to bounce it and get out there and they're running his direction, he really struggled to get off the block, and they were able to get to the perimeter. Just time and time again, just getting late to the party. You'd have a linebacker or a safety that would miss the block on the outside or the tackle on the outside, and there'd be a big gain. Malik Jackson had 13 carries for 76 yards and a score, and most of those were being able to bounce that run to the outside, running at Prince Amewule. I thought, Tyrese Knight, the linebacker, middle linebacker, 6'2", 235. You saw good range sideline to sideline. He's going to chase down ball carriers, able to turn and run with the running backs on the wheel route, showing the ability to cover down the field. He's a guy that I want to continue to watch, especially as they get into the bulk of the season, going up against Conference USA foes. He's a guy that I think could surprise, potentially slide his way into the draft conversation. 13 tackles, a half tackle for loss in the game. He's just one of those guys that continued to flash. You're watching, and number 10 was all over the field making plays. So, he's the guy that if there's going to be somebody from the minors that we're talking about not named Prince Amewule, I think it should be Tyrese Knight. Which takes us to UMass and New Mexico State. Las Cruces, New Mexico, Aggie Memorial Stadium. And this game started out 13-10, kind of a ho-hum game. It wound up being a shootout with the Minutemen winning the game 41-30. And I'll tell you what, Don Brown found his quarterback in Tyson Pumachan. 10-17 for 192 yards, but then also 17 carries for 96 yards and a touchdown. He's very athletic on the outside. He's only a junior, so he's going to come back for one more year. Started at Clemson and then moved his way to Georgia Tech before, again, finding the home there at UMass. And look, this is a kid. He doesn't have he's kind of a slightly built 6'4", 215, but he's athletic. He's a guy that can make those throws to the wide side of the field. You definitely see that. You see the arm strength. But really the weapon were the legs. That's really where he was making, giving some trouble there for the defense. You saw his ability to run through contact, keep the balance there. He wasn't very efficient as a passer on third down. I thought that was something where he really struggled. But you saw the patience, waiting for receivers to get open, wasn't rushing his throws. You saw the pocket presence to step up in the pocket. There was a tight window throw, really threaded the needle. Really good arm strength, hit Christian Wells between the corner and the linebacker on a post. Receiver made the catch, bounced off, and took it down the field for a 68-yard run. Very next play had an 11-yard touchdown. Play action, read the defensive end to the outside, cut off the right tackle block, and then back outside to avoid the linebacker, speed to the end zone. I thought that Anthony Simpson, a transfer from Arizona, one of 8 transfers to come from the Wildcats. Another guy who's only a junior, 5'11", 180 pounds, very reliable weapon, speed on the outside, also attacking the middle of the field. 3 receptions of 15-plus yards. This is a guy who's also showing speed coming off the edge on an end around. I think Anthony Simpson is going to be one of those guys that we're talking about. He has that potential, the explosiveness. Only 3 catches, but for 65 yards, 2 carries for 27 yards, and the touchdown. UMass, they just continued to move the football. They were very impressive. Like I said, Tyson Pumachan, finally has a home. The guy that I was really curious to see play was Billy Wooden, the 6'1", 310-pound junior defensive tackle. You saw the athleticism, some short area bursts to get to Diego Pavia in the pocket. Got a 5-yard sack out of it. He really used the hands to slap, rip through once he cleared the left guard. Had that short area burst to get to the quarterback. Had the non-contact injury a season ago against Army, but he's back and fully healthy. And then Michael Opong, the safety, another junior, transfer from Bryant, playing the Viper position. Read the quarterback eyes on a curl route to the receiver. Ball was thrown a little bit high, able to close, pop the ball in the air, concentration to then haul in the pick and get a return out of it as well. So UMass, I think this is a team that can make it to a bowl game this year. I think they've got some talent on both sides of the football. I think it'll be interesting to see how they continue to progress. I think, Don Brown's a defensive genius. He's got all the guys. Look, Jerry Roberts Jr. was a starting middle linebacker for Arizona the last couple of seasons. Now he's there with UMass, so I think the portal's definitely helped him. Here's a name to consider there for New Mexico State. Only a junior, 5'11", 195 pounds, Monte Watkins. Number 8, 10 400-meter speed, transfer from TCU last year. Run play to the perimeter into the boundary. Gets a kick-out block by the running back, Jamoni Jones. Showed the really quick acceleration down the field. Ran away from everyone on an 80-yard touchdown. It was like they fast-forwarded the film while everybody else was in slow motion. Just a dynamic speed and a playmaker on the outside. He's a guy that I think we should be taking notice of because of that speed. I think they've got to get him the football a lot more. Gutty performance out of Diego Pavia, but man, just so many miscues, ill-advised throws, just inability to take care of the football. That was ultimately what cost them the game. San Diego State and Ohio. I was looking forward to seeing Curtis Rourke play, especially against the San Diego State defense. And look, Curtis Rourke started the game 8 of 10 for 75 yards. And I was thinking, okay, we've got something here. He was really quick to get the ball out, accurate on the move. Did put one ball on, it was a slant on the back shoulder of the receiver. The corner was able to make a play on it. But I think the ball jumps out of his hand a little bit. You see the arm strength. He does go through his progressions. Sometimes he is a little slow to come off his primary. But he was injured on a sack by Cyrus Fiesau. Sat out the remainder of the game. It seems like it's for precautionary measures. The coach, Tom Alvin, said that he did have a little bit of a limp. Rourke, according to Alvin, he wasn't really happy with the coaches for keeping him out. But look, when you have your star quarterback tearing his ACL, you're going to take those precautionary measures, especially with this being game 1. CJ Harris, I think, struggled there at the quarterback position. That really kind of changed the whole tide, the whole conversation there for Ohio. But Sam Wiglusz is a guy that, look, they mentioned on the broadcast, Hunter Renfrow. That's exactly who I see. 6 foot, 183 pounds. He's reliable, a sure-handed target, just a knack for getting open, very clean route runner, excellent adjustment to the ball thrown on his back shoulder, was running the slant, able to adjust in the air by reaching back and plucking the ball out of the air. Just the hands, the ability to get himself open, precise route running. He's a guy that I think is going to find a home at the next level. 10 catches, 103 yards. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't have a huge year, over 1,000 yards. He and Curtis Rourke can really get things working. I think having Jacoby Jones back as well is going to help this offense. And I think Ohio is going to be a force in the MAC. Defensively, Bryce Houston is a stud, number 32, 6 foot, 246 pounds, 13 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss. Really, kind of a free defender at times, moving around to fill gaps, shoot in there, wrap up the running back. He was a will, but was also lining up inside at the mic, and field side runs. He gets through the pulling tight end block, beats it to the inside, a little bit too high with some of his tackles. Needs to watch that a little bit, but very instinctive. Shoots the alley, drops the running back right around the line of scrimmage. He was covering the tight end, Mark Redmond, in the slot. Backpedaling, looked a little stiff, ball thrown over his head, tried to leap, and ultimately the safety was able to break it up. That's not going to be his bread and butter. He's the guy that's going to come downhill. He's the guy that can scrape over the top a little bit. But really, I think the biggest thing for Bryce Houston to show that he can be an 8th, 83 selection in the draft is that ability to drop into coverage. Can he get after the quarterback, or is he strictly a 2-down performer? If he's just a 2-down guy, then I think that's where it's going to limit his production overall, in terms of draft stock. Now, San Diego State, ultimately the winners 20-13, as I mentioned. Their quarterback, Jalen Maiden, a couple of touchdown passes, and really the guy that was the focal point of the offense was Mark Redmond. 5 catches, 62 yards, and those 2 scores. Ran a hesitation route, 6 seconds to go in the first half. 13-yard touchdown, went up the seam from the slot, about 7 yards, zone coverage behind, really gets behind those linebackers, and then takes off to the end zone, makes the catch in front of the smaller safety. excellent body control along the sideline to plant, open up, extend for the ball, throw into the sideline, pick up 11 yards. There was a corner route, comes across, able to track the ball well, catch over his shoulder on a 23-yard pass play, then runs right by the linebacker on a 4-yard touchdown. Really sat behind underneath coverage on that. This is the guy who transferred in from Washington, but really the blocking was what really caught my eye with him. Gets a takedown on the DB, Adonis Williams, on a run play for Jalen Armstead. Just kind of took him and drove him into the ground, and then got his hands under the defensive end, Bradley Weaver, on a 4th and 2 play, able to drive him off the ball, ultimately drive him into the ground to help spring Armstead for that first down as well. So I think you're seeing a tight end who is a complete player, in my opinion, 6'6", 255, and a guy that I think is going to continue to move up draft boards. When you think of him, I think of Daniel Bellinger, only I think he's probably a better pass catcher, may even end up being a better athlete. So I think he's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And then Cody Moon, the transfer from New Mexico, walked on there for the Lobos, gained a scholarship, and then now he's at San Diego State, 6'3", 210, an undersized linebacker, redshirt junior, excuse me. But 11 tackles and a pass breakup. This guy was literally everywhere. Number 58 for the Aztecs. Shooting downhill, blitzing, getting to C.J. Harris. Ultimately made a big hit on the quarterback. Popped up into the air. There was a pick by the linebacker, Trey White. Very sure tackler, wraps up well. Good speed to get outside on a run play to the boundary. Able to flip his hips, turning coverage. There's a throw over the middle to the tight end, Will Kasmerick. Stops in the middle of the field, waited to use the outside arm. And really a nice swipe to knock the football away. So that was really something that was impressive. He didn't run up the back of the tight end. The throw there, he stopped in the middle of the field, and ultimately he's kind of waiting, biding his time, and then ultimately reacts at the right time, chops down, makes a play on the football. Timed his blitzes really well, shooting gaps, getting into the backfield. I think that was something that was really impressive as well. When I look at Cody Moon, he's undersized, but man, he flies around and just makes a ton of plays. And he's one of those guys that I think will get a chance at the next level. Offensively, the other guy to mention is Keenan Kristen, the transfer from USC last year. 5'10", 190 pounds, just 45 yards on the ground, but you see the speed on the outside. I think that's something that San Diego State, they need to be able to establish and maintain a running game to kind of open up some of the passing lanes. And so I think you really need to get Keenan Kristen going there on the outside, take advantage of some of that speed, and let him do his thing on the perimeter. And now let's talk about Louisiana Tech and FIU. I thought the Bulldogs, man, they ended up pulling this one out 22-17. But when you look at when Grayson James throws for just 4 yards and FIU still had a chance to win this game, it's just mind-boggling. Shamari Lawrence had a long run. I think it was an 80-yard touchdown run to at the beginning of the game. And Louisiana Tech really just shooting themselves in the foot. Hank Bachmeier struggling with a lot of his throws, some ill-advised throws. Looked nervous in his first game there, ironically enough. Bachmeier really was the guy that was coming in and looked at to kind of be the savior of that offense for Sonny Cumpy and company, really get that offense going. And there were some struggles early and often with the passing attack, but he really started to develop a chemistry with Smoke Harris, the diminutive one, 5'7", 183 pounds. You see the explosiveness on the outside. 33 consecutive games with the reception. That's the third highest in Louisiana Tech history, just 8 away from Trent Taylor's record, and the 9th longest current streak in the FBS. His third 100-yard game in this game. This is a guy, he uses the speed to get open, can make the first man miss, very dynamic in space, lateral quickness, able to slip the tackles. You see the stutter on the boundary to set up the wide receiver blocks and then gets up the field in a hurry. Smoke Harris did have a fumble in the game, but 11 catches, 155 yards, and a touchdown. The explosiveness and the playmaking ability on the perimeter is definitely something that teams have to take notice of. And then FIU, I think the guy that has the potential to get drafted is Donovan Manuel, the 6'1", 230-pound linebacker, number 10, 15 tackles and a tackle for loss on the game. He started his career at East Tennessee State before moving on to FIU. You saw his ability to drop into coverage, decent hips in coverage there, and then ultimately when the running back comes out of the backfield, was able to quickly read, react, come back downhill to the running back and drop him in the open field. So he's another one of those linebackers that I think has a chance. He's just going to have to continue to showcase his ability to be a 3-down linebacker and be able to remain on the field, both in coverage against the run and then also getting after the quarterback a little bit. So I think that's something, that we're going to be watching to see if he can separate himself just a little bit. And then Vanderbilt taking on Hawaii. Look, Hawaii racking up a lot of the frequent flyer miles. They fly all the way out to Nashville for the first game. I think this is the farthest that they're going to be traveling. But Vandy ends up getting it done, 35-28. Much closer game than a season ago. I thought with Vanderbilt, Will Shepard, obviously the go-to guy, second in the SEC a season ago with 9 touchdowns. Normally a sure-handed receiver, you'd see him pluck the football out of the air. Did have an uncharacteristic drop, hit him right in the hands, and bounced off of the hands and was incomplete. Also muffed an onside kick. Ultimately was called back, but you wanted to see him, a sure-handed receiver. You'd expect him to look that in. So I think that's something that we're going to be looking to see if he can shake that off. But he wins at the line of scrimmage. Inside moves, really what he was seeing more often than not was off coverage. Cam Stone, the corner, playing a good 6-7 yards off. So what he would do is run his routes. The slant route was open all day long, being able to drive across the face of the corner and be able to pluck the football out of the air. Ran a skinny post, ball right out in front of him, hauls it in for an 18-yard touchdown as well. Had a 27-yard punt return. Really the guy for me on Vanderbilt was DeRicky Wright, the safety. I mentioned him in the podcast, kind of setting everything up for not only the SEC talk, but then also previewing this game. 6'4", 217 pounds, a strong safety. The fullback, Sulu Vaipulu, catches a screen pass, takes off for 23 yards. He puts his helmet on the football for a forced fumble right there at the 1-yard line. Saves a touchdown there. Same drive, actually now from the 6-yard line. He's covering the tight end, Grayson Morgan, in the slot. Runs a corner route to the wide side, back corner of the end zone. The quarterback, Braden Shager, airs it out right, trailing the tight end, put himself in a position, elevates, picks off the pass, the body control to get the right foot down in the end zone as well. And playing the box versus a run, he'll cover the tight end in the slot. Also plays deep in zone coverage, read the receiver to his left up the seam, read the quarterback's eye, slid to his left, undercutting the route, getting that second pick of the game. Ultimately wound up winning the game there. There was also a throw into the flat to the running back, Landon Sims. Read the play, sprinted to the perimeter, drops the running back in the open field after just a short gain. Really a nice open field tackle. Read and react ability, I think, is definitely there as well for him. Two other guys that are underclassmen that likely won't be, Jayden McGowan isn't draft eligible, but very dynamic with the ball in his hands. We'll be talking about him next year. And then another safety, CJ Taylor, 6'1", 201, only a junior, playing the anchor position though, 9 tackles, a sack, a couple of tackles for loss, a pass breakup. Linebacker safety hybrid, was playing up on the line, guy that could drop into coverage a little bit. Showed the ability to engage the fullback, rip underneath, turn the corner, and ultimately get his hand up to knock the football down. So I think CJ Taylor's a guy that has a bright future as well. For Hawaii, Braden Shager is the quarterback of the present and the future. He's a big reason why Hawaii was competitive in this game. Threw for 351 yards, 3 touchdowns. The 2 interceptions, definitely costly there. DeRicky Wright, one-man army there on the back end of the defense there for the Commodores. But running Timmy Chang's run-and-shoot offense to perfection, really a quick decision-maker. With time, he was picking apart Vanderbilt's defense, can make throws to the wide side in a hurry. There was a post play there to Stephen McBride. Ball was a little bit short, and ultimately, the corner was able to make a play on the football. So he does need to watch that a little bit. But another time, he drops back, the clean pocket, went through his progressions, unloads a perfect ball on a post to Pofele Ashlock, put the ball right out in front, allow the receiver to make a diving catch on a 50-yard pass play. So I think it's just more about the reps with Shager and the ability to continue to air that football out. On that, the corner route that the tight end ran, he did double clutch it, but then you also didn't see a ton of arm strength there. I think the ball kind of hung up a little bit, and Ricky Wright, playing underneath that route, he would have had to sit there and get the ball up and over Wright in order for the tight end Morgan to even make a play on the football. So probably not the best decision. Probably should have gone to a different option there, especially trying to throw to the wide side on that corner route. Stephen McBride was a transfer from Kansas. I thought he looked like a solid receiver for them. Could be the number one option. 6'1", 165, 7 catches, 98 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Beat the corner, B.J. Anderson, on a vertical route, able to stack and then track the ball over his shoulder. Reached out, able to haul in the pass for a 47-yard touchdown. Really a reliable weapon underneath as well. So I'll be curious to see kind of how his game continues to develop, the senior transfer. And then Isaiah Tufaga, the linebacker, 6'1", 220 pounds, transferred from Oregon State prior to last season. He was a guy that just continued to blitz up the middle. You'd see him stutter on the center, able to avoid the hands, swim, beats him, gets straight to the quarterback for the sack. Later on, there was a play action, was able to plant to the inside and loop back outside, runs right by the left guard, gets straight to the quarterback. So really a good burst on the football. 8 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss on the game for Isaiah Tufaga. A guy that I thought was the best player defensively for Hawaii. And that really leads me to, when you talk about Vanderbilt, they've got some players, especially on the defensive side of the football, but with that offense, A.J. Swan, is going to need time. And that offensive line, I thought, really struggled to give him that. I thought they really struggled to get any consistency on the ground. That offensive line can't play like they did against Hawaii and expect Vanderbilt to compete in the SEC. I think defense is going to be solid, but if you get a bunch of 3 and outs, you're just going to have the defense on the field all the time, and after a while, they're definitely going to struggle to make plays. So that's something that I think we definitely have to watch out for Vanderbilt. Now, I mentioned Thursday night games. I got to watch all of those as well, and I'll tell you, the first game that I watched was UCF and Kent State. John Rice Plumlee, this is a guy that is a tremendous athlete. I think that's one of the things that is very apparent. This is a 2-sport guy. The ability to get outside the pocket, make plays. Look, he had 8 carries? I think it was 90 yards and a touchdown. Also 281 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Did have a couple of picks on the day. I think he's a tremendous athlete. He's a guy that I think struggles, though, as a quarterback at times. That's one of the things that you'll see. There was some accuracy, but was very careless with the football on a fumble that he had. He did start the game with 6 to 7 passing, but really it's his feet that allowing him to extend the plays. He did hit a couple of receivers, but I wasn't overly impressed with him as a passer. Javon Baker was a guy that I was really looking forward to seeing play, and he was pretty quiet for the first half. Still ended up with 4 catches for 59 yards. A guy that I think separates from the corners with his route running ability. A guy that also showed pretty good hands. I think the best play for him was Plumlee. Rolls out to buy time, able to move with him. Finds an opening, makes the catch, then plants and cuts it back to the inside of the corner with a good burst down the field. I think that was like 18, 19 yards. So Baker's a guy to continue to watch there at the receiver position. But really, the guy that was the stud kind of a breakout was R.J. Harvey. R.J. Harvey is a senior. I had to go back and take a look, and he is a senior. He's 5'8", 195 pounds. Good strength between the tackles. Doesn't go down to first contact. Spun out of a tackle and fell forward. There's a backward pass to him, but there's a ton of pressure. So he had to spin away from the defensive tackle, Oliver Balot. Avoided 2 more tacklers to end up still picking up 7 yards when it looked like the play was going to get blown up. ball thrown on the back shoulder up the seam, was able to adjust to the pass, get around, and the speed to the end zone for a 50-yard touchdown. Then there was a 52-yard pass. Follows the blockers. Really, run play was probably going to go inside, but instead he takes it outside off tackle, cuts inside the receiver block, and then shows that gear, second gear to get it to the house. So, the speed, that's definitely something that you're going to be watching, and then the ability to catch the football out of the backfield a little bit as well. Tylan Grable, the 6'7", 290-pound left tackle. Thought he showed decent hand placement on pass protection, kick slide as well. The defensive end shot his hands on him first, but he was able to use that length to really extend and nullify any progress. The kick slide was definitely there, but there was an interesting play where the defensive end kind of extends his arms, and he takes his right arm and chops down on the arm of the defensive end and ultimately gets him to the ground. So I thought that was definitely interesting. And then on an end around, you saw some athleticism, his ability to get down the field, got a downfield block on the defensive back to help Xavier Townsend on a 28-yard run. He was a transfer from Jacksonville State before the season last year. He just needed to clean up the footwork and pass protection. That's really the main note that I had, so that's something that I'm going to continue to watch. I thought John Celiscar on defense was probably their best player overall. 7 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss. He and Lee Hunter, the nose tackle, 8 tackles and a sack, very active. Was getting outside on the perimeter, making plays against the quarterback, Michael Alimo. But John Celiscar, 6'4", 265, good job holding the point against the run, very active on the outside. He'll stand up as a rush end on third downs as well. There's a play where he attacked the right tackle's outside shoulder, the power, extends those hands into the shoulder pad, shoves him to the inside, able to pressure the quarterback with Tremont Morris Brash. Morris Brash is 6'2", 245 pounds, likely going to be an outside linebacker at the next level, but 3 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss. I thought he was most effective as a stand-up edge rusher. So those were the guys that stood out to me for UCF. And then with Kent State, look, they were overmatched on the offensive side. Michael Alimo had some open receivers, missed a lot of his targets. That's really one of the things I want to see is UCF's defense, especially that secondary, matching up against a team with a quarterback that's accurate within the pocket. I think Decorian Patterson wasn't really tested on the outside. We didn't. Jason Johnson, their middle linebacker who racked up 126 tackles a season ago, he didn't really have to do a whole lot in this game. For Kent State, Devin Nicholson, 6'2", 220 pounds, a transfer from Missouri, played 39 games with them. He was spying John Rice Plumlee all game. You saw him shoot gaps. Did a good job actually chasing down and wrapping up R.J. Harvey in the open field. 13 tackles, a couple of tackles for loss for him. I think Devin Nicholson now, being able to start and have a prominent role there for Kent State is going to bode well for him and his future. NC State ultimately taking down Connecticut. Brennan Armstrong, 17 to 26 for just 155 yards. It was a 96 yards on 19 carries and 2 touchdowns that ultimately helped propel NC State to the win. I thought Brennan Armstrong, just looked like an average passer. I didn't see anything really flashy from him, nothing that really wowed you. But it was the zone reads. You saw his ability to make plays as a runner, very athletic, dynamic. He's reunited with Robert and I from their time in Virginia. 405 passing yards per game in 2021. Really the question is does he have anybody at the receiver position? He's got Keon Lassane, Julian Gray, Porter Rooks. I just don't know that he has the talent at the receiver position. I don't know that he's developed enough chemistry there as well. It's something that I think is going to be a work in progress, but his athleticism was really what won the game, I think, on the offensive side there for NC State. Defensively, obviously, Peyton Wilson's going to be the dude, 6'4", 240, tremendously athletic. You saw him scraping over the top quickly, exploding forward, driving through the ball carrier, wraps up well. There was a just very fluid mover in space, dropping into coverage. An underneath throw to the running back, drives quickly, slings down the running back for no yak, only a gain of a couple of yards. Then you see him drop into the middle of the field in zone coverage. Reads the quarterback's eyes as a receiver from the slot, runs an in-breaking route. Good hips slide, opens up, and then turns to his right and ultimately picks off the football in zone coverage. 10 tackles, a TFL, a pass breakup, and that interception. Peyton Wilson doing his thing. But when we talk about linebacker play in this game, we got to see another really strong linebacker in Jackson Mitchell, number 8, 15 tackles on the day, 1.5 tackles for loss, and a pass breakup. A guy that just racks up tackles, 133 tackles, I believe, a season ago. And, the year before that had 120 tackles, 6.5 for loss, 1.5 sacks. But this is a guy that I thought showed pretty fluid hips, his ability to flip them and turn and run in coverage. You saw the pre-snap reads, understanding run, scraping over the top, got right around the center, Dylan McMahon, a guy that I think is a bona fide center at the next level, able to drop the running back in the open field, wraps him up. He did float it to meet the running back, Michael Allen, in the hole, tried to tackle too high, right around the shoulder pad. Running back was able to get through that tackle. But there was another play where he drops into coverage, zone coverage, receiver post on a 3rd and 9, reads the quarterback's eyes, undercuts the route, dives, nearly came up with the interception. Ball just went right off of his fingers. Jackson Mitchell's one of the better linebackers that people aren't really talking about. He'll probably be a day 3 guy, mid to late day 3. I look at a guy like Tyler Matakevich, who had over 400 tackles in his career at Temple. Nobody really talked about him in the pre-draft process, but a guy that just had the instincts, a guy that knew where the football was going to be, was always making plays on the football, and really was one of my favorite players to watch in college because of that. And this is a guy, he's kind of been a journeyman. He's played at a few different places, with the Steelers, the Bills, but he always seems to find himself a home because he's been such a beast in the special teams. 7th round pick, 246 overall, limited athletically, but again, 493 tackles, 40.5 going for loss, 7 sacks, 7 interceptions, 11 pass breakups. The guy did a little bit of everything. And when I look at Jackson Mitchell, obviously coming from UConn, an independent team, 6'2", 239. So, versus, you compare him to Matakevich, who's 6'1", 232, right around the same size. Jackson might be a little bit taller. But look, when you look at Jackson, 319 tackles in his career, 17.5 for loss, 6.5 sacks, 2 interceptions, 6 pass breakups. Going into this game, 15 tackles yet again. Could have 3 straight years with triple-digit tackles. Just keep an eye out for Jackson Mitchell. He's a guy that I think will end up making a roster. If nothing else, he'll be playing special teams, but you love the instincts. You love his ability to fly around and make plays on the football. One other guy to mention is going to be Eric Watts. The defensive end had 5 tackles in this game. Really a good job pursuing the ball carrier from the backside. Also saw some power in his hands to shove his man up the field, come off the block, get some pressure on Brennan Armstrong. And I mentioned Dylan McMahon. This is a guy that I'd be remiss if I didn't speak about him just a little bit. You'd see the snap very quick to then get out. He'd find Jackson Mitchell and seal him off to the outside on a run up the middle. The running back would kind of run off of his hip, and what he was doing was he'd get out there to that middle linebacker, Jackson Mitchell, make sure he wasn't going to make a play on it, and be able to turn him. 33 starts in his career, a guy that is going to be playing at the next level. I think there's really no question about that. I think you're definitely going to be seeing him. He's going to be a center that we're going to be talking about. The question really is just going to be whether or not he comes out because he's a junior. But I think there's a chance that we could see him, especially if there's conversation about him potentially sneaking his way into the first 4 rounds of the draft. There was that play that Jackson Mitchell was able to get right around him and to Jordan Houston. So I think that was the matchup and the dynamic that you were seeing. And I thought for the most part he was getting the better of Jackson Mitchell, but that one play on Justin Houston wrapping him up for the tackle for loss, Mitchell was able to one-up him there in the middle of the defense there. Nebraska and Minnesota, different coach, same type of a situation. Nebraska going down to Minnesota, last-second field goal, losing 13-10. Jeff Sims, A lot of people hyped up Jeff Sims as potentially the number 3 quarterback in this draft. A lot of people had him as a first-round quarterback. Can we just stop that conversation, please? This was a guy that he needed to improve his completion percentage. You see the athleticism. That's apparent. 19 carries for 91 yards, but just 11 of 19, 114 yards, a touchdown, but 3 interceptions. Just ill-advised throws. Tyler Nubin, we'll talk about him in a second. He had 2 picks. There was one that he got hit, as he was throwing, so it wasn't really his fault. But there were a lot of close calls, trying to fit it into windows where it just wasn't there. I don't see Jeff Sims as a viable option as a quarterback in this year's draft. He's got another year of eligibility, so I think we see him take that, stay another year in Lincoln and develop. But right now, I just don't see him as a quarterback that has any draftable qualities outside of just that overall athleticism. But to play the quarterback position, I don't see it right now out of Jeff Sims. Luke Reimer, the linebacker, had a sack, 5 tackles on the day. A guy that he's going to fly around and make plays. He's the leader of that defense. He was without his running mate Nick Henrik. Tore that ACL, wasn't all the way back, didn't play in this game. But Minnesota, man, that defense, that's one of the better defenses in the Big Ten. And when we talk about Tyler Nubin, again, the guy that has first-round potential, had 4 interceptions last year, but you're watching him, over the top of a crossing route. Jeff Sims tries to go in that direction. Pressured by the defensive tackle, Devin Eastern, ball kind of sails. Nubin was able to come up with a pick there, extended for the football. Kind of went through his chest, but he was still able to kind of haul in that pick as he went to the ground. Had another pick later on in the game. To me, I look at Tyler Nubin, the size, 6'2", 210 pounds, his ability to drop into coverage, the physicality. He's a guy that's going to run the alley and wants to come downhill, get physical against the run. Definitely a guy that's going to be one of the top safeties in this draft. I mentioned Kalen Bullock. I think Tyler Nubin might have a leg up on him. He's got a little bit more size to him. It's just really the fluidity in the game, and I think Nubin has that. So it's not just the size, but his ability to flow and make plays and be 'able to flip his hips when he needs to. But the other guy for Minnesota that I was really impressed with was the junior corner Justin Wally, number 5, 5'11", 190 pounds. There was an underneath throw to the receiver Alex Bullock. Showed he wasn't afraid of contact coming downhill. Big open field tackle on the receiver, 1 yard shy of the first down, forced a punt. Jeff Sims was trying to hit a receiver on a curl route. Ball was thrown kind of to the outside, right where he was. There was really no separation. So he was able to drive on that football, undercut it, make a diving play on the ball. Nearly had a pick. 8 tackles and a pass breakup on the day for Justin Wally. So he's definitely a guy that I think we should be keeping an eye out for. On the offensive side, I think Sean Tyler is a guy that they're going to need to get going early and often in the running game. Only had 10 carries for 41 yards. A guy that had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons at Western Michigan. Ethan Kaliakmanis, the quarterback, 196 yards and a touchdown, also threw a pick. A guy that was going to make some plays with his legs as well. Not anything special there at the quarterback position, but a guy, he's going to be a good game manager, I think, for them. Just needs to cut down on the mistakes. Reason why I bring Kaliakmanis in is I think he brings that athleticism to that offense that Tanner Morgan did not, which I think is going to bode well for the receivers, especially the tight end Brevin Spann-Ford. 6'7", 260, a monster there on the outside. First catch of the game, turns right around, uses that big body to make the catch, uses the big frame in the ground game as well. I saw him extend his arms into the defensive end, Blaze Gunnerson. Use that leverage, get under the pad level, ultimately able to throw him down in the running game. So I'd would love to be able to watch number 88 blocking for Sean Tyler. And then if that running game can open things up in the passing game, really want to see what Spann-Ford could do, building some of that chemistry with Kaliakmanis. Really it's his second year as a starter, first full year as a starter, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what Kaliakmanis can do throwing the football around. The one game that I haven't really gotten a chance to break down just yet is the Utah-Florida game. Utah ultimately coming away with the win, despite the fact that the Cam Rising was not playing. I think that bodes well for not only Utah, but the Pac-12 conference. in their swan song, if you will. So we'll be able to break that down in the next podcast. Going to loop that in with we get to see on Friday and Saturday. Speaking of Friday, we've got a handful of games on Friday night, and I think the games to really watch out for are the two Miami teams. Miami, Florida, taking on Miami of Ohio. That's going to be held at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens. And when you look at Miami, obviously you're looking at Tyler Van Dyke. What can Van Dyke do? Obviously, he's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay upright. Can he bounce back? That's going to be a big question mark. And then also, who are go-to guys going to be? Is it going to be Xavier Restrepo, Frank Ladson? Want to see what happens out there. Elijah Arroyo could be a breakout star at the tight end position. Then that offensive line. Is Zion Nelson going to be healthy there at that left tackle spot? You're breaking it in a right tackle. I know that he's a 5-star, but still, Francis Mauigoa. What does that look like on the right side? Javion Cohen, Matthew Lee at the left guard and center, guys that came from Alabama and UCF respectively. Those are guys that I think could end up solidifying themselves as early day 3 candidates there up front. This is a second year with Mario Cristobal at the helm, so I expect an improvement there on the offensive line. And then Leonard Taylor at the defensive tackle spot. He has a chance to be one of the top 2 or 3 defensive tackles in the country at 6'3", 305. He's a guy that I think teams are really going to be interested in seeing how he plays. I think he has that first-round ability for sure. And then on the back end of the defense, that's going to be the other area to watch with Cam Kinchins, all the interceptions, the playmaking ability on the back end. And then the big dude, James Williams, 6'5", 215. Look, we already got to see what DeRicky Wright could do, the 6'4", 220-pound safety. I think we were talking about the big safeties. Those are 2 names that automatically come to mind for me, Williams and Wright. So I'm really curious to see what Williams can do kind of breaking out there. Keep an eye on Hawaii. Hawaii is going to be taking on Stanford, and Troy Taylor's first game at the helm with the Cardinal. And, look, Hawaii, they showed some stuff. They showed their passing ability. They showed much better defense. They showed some grittiness, some toughness. They hung in there and really made it a 4-point contest. They're going to go in there against Stanford, and look, E.J. Smith, how healthy is he at the running back spot? I think Benjamin Urasek, the tight end, is a guy to watch out for. Is he an improved blocker? That's the biggest thing, because this guy has over 600 yards receiving. I believe it was his sophomore year, 6'4", 242, a senior now, has good speed. There's not a whole lot of depth on this team. The big playmaker defensively is only a sophomore, David Bailey, the edge rusher. I think there's a chance that Hawaii could pull off the upset and really ruin that opening game, that debut for Troy Taylor. That'll be the game for me that I'm really curious about seeing and seeing if Hawaii can pull off the upset. Then you get to Saturday. And Saturday, I think there are a lot of really fun games. Obviously, getting to watch Michigan early on. They're taking on East Carolina, a team that I don't think they really have to worry about so much. But it's going to be, what can that ground game look like? Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, that offensive line, with Drake Nugent at center, Ladarius Henderson, a lot of different new faces. Zach Zinter is a holdover and a guy that's going to be physical in that ground game. If I'm East Carolina, I'm definitely not looking forward to this game because, frankly, they're going to get pushed around off the line of scrimmage. Want to see defensively for Michigan. Chris Jenkins have a big game. Keep an eye out for Junior Colson, and then Rod Moore, the safety. For East Carolina, they're going to have their work cut out for them. I think you've got some youth on defense, both up front and on the back end. Really, the veterans are going to be on that defensive line. They're all undersized, so I really think that Michigan's going to be able to overpower them, and it should be a rout early in that game. OU gets to take on Arkansas State. Dylan Gabriel has to have a big year, otherwise Jackson Arnold's right there breathing down his neck. Want to see the offensive line play. Walter Rouse and Tyler Guyton, 2 tackles that could end up being talked about as in the case of Guyton, there's some that are even talking about him as a first rounder. I think that's a little bit too rich. Second round makes more sense, especially where Anton Harrison wound up. Want to see that defensive end group. There are 3 of them: Ethan Downs, Reggie Grimes, Rondell Bothroyd, all guys that play with the nonstop motor, and then Danny Stutzman. Want to see if he's continued his development. I think it'll be a rout there against the Red Wolves. TCU taking on Colorado. Obviously, we get to see Shedeur Sanders take on a Power 5 team. That's going to be intriguing, obviously, with Dion and the new group there. Obviously, we'll get to see Travis Hunter and what he can do. Chandler Morris is going to be running that offense at TCU. Look, a lot of guys are gone. We don't have Kendre Miller, no Quentin Johnston, no Tay Barber, no Darius Davis. Savion Williams is back. He'll be the top receiver. You've got a couple of tackles in Brandon Coleman and Andrew Coker, who have next level ability. Defensively, they've returned a lot of guys. Josh Newton, the corner, is probably the best of the bunch. 6 foot, 185, 195. He's a guy that has a chance to be a first rounder. So keep an eye on him. Can he really cause problems there for Shedeur Sanders? Mark Perry, Bud Clark, very active at the safety position as well. And then Johnny Hodges and Jamoy Hodge. Obviously, D. Winters isn't there, but these are two guys that can fly around and make some plays. Hodges especially looking to try to make plays behind the line of scrimmage, 9.5 a season ago. Jamoy Hodge, a guy that knows how to get after the quarterback, 4.5 sacks last year. Colorado, there's just so many new guys. I like the fact that they brought in Alton McCaskill, the running back. You'll have some explosiveness there, but just with so many unknowns, I think it'll be interesting to tune in and watch, but ultimately I think TCU ends up running away with this game when it's all said and done. Iowa, is Cade McNamara going to be playing? That's going to be a big question mark. It sounds like there's some injury questions there, but Iowa want to see if that offense, if he is playing, can they sustain a drive? Spencer Petras really struggled last year at that quarterback spot, so getting a bona fide quarterback in there is definitely going to help. Luke Lachey, Eric All, you're going to be seeing a lot of 12 personnel out of Iowa. The offensive line, Mason Richmond, Connor Colby, guys to watch out for. Joe Evans up front, putting pressure on the quarterback. Nick Jackson at linebacker. Cooper DeJean on the back end. Blake Anderson's group, Utah State really going to struggle, but that'll be a game I want to watch, really more so just to see what Iowa looks like when they first hit the field. You get into the afternoon game, and you got Ohio State taking on Indiana. I think Tom Allen's really on the hot seat. I don't think this roster, when you return just a couple of starters on defense and just 3 on offense, you're in for some trouble. I have a feeling, and I wouldn't be surprised if Tom Allen is out of a job even before the season is out. So many weapons. Getting to watch Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Ibuka, Cade Stover, the passing game, Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams at the running back position in the ground game. Offensive line, this is going to be the question mark. Can the tackles hold up? Obviously, you've got Donovan Jackson and Matt Jones at guard. Donovan Jackson's the guy that has a chance to end up being a first rounder. Defensively, JT Tuimoloau, Mike Hall, Tyleik Hamilton, guys to watch out for up front, along with Jack Sawyer, Tommy Eichenberg flying around and making plays, Denzel Burke on the back end of the defense. I think this game will be over by halftime, and really it's going to be played in Bloomington. So those fans, it could be a rough one for them. Washington, they get Boise State at home, and look, they're ranked number 10 in the country for a reason. You've got Michael Penix Jr., you got Rome Odunze. Those are going to be guys that are going to be flying down the sideline. He and Jalen McMillan and Jalen Polk. Obviously you got Troy Fatanu and Roger Rosengarten at the tackle spot, but the interior of that line is going to be the big question mark. Our guy is going to be able to shoot the gap and put pressure on Penix from up the middle. Defensively, Braylon Trice, Zion Tupuola-Fatuli, and then Latuli Nasanoa up front, going to be putting a lot of pressure on the quarterback. Want to see what that cornerback play looks like for them. Jabbar Muhammad, the transfer from Oklahoma State. They've lost some guys. They've lost some guys in the secondary. Really want to see what that is going to look like, how it's going to play out. And they take on a Boise State team. We haven't really gotten to break them down yet. We will get into some of the Group of 5 conference. Taylen Green is the athletic quarterback. George Holani, a guy running the football as well. A lot of experience on the offensive side of the football. Defensively, DJ Schramm is the name to remember. 6 foot, 234 pounds, 110 tackles, second team All Mountain West, 11.5 tackles for loss. dude's a leader. He's the guy that I think, be looking to try to shoot some gaps and get some penetration, up the middle. I just don't think that there's enough firepower defensively for Boise State to handle Washington's offense. I think ultimately Washington ends up pulling away in that game. Wisconsin's taking on Buffalo. I kind of want to tune in just to watch Tanner Mordecai and watch how that offense has evolved there under Phil Longo. It's going to be a completely different offense for Wisconsin, so I'm curious to see what that looks like. Just how many touchdowns are going to be up on Buffalo by the time jump around plays is going to be the question. On defense, Miami, Jungmeta, 6', 240, the junior, 95 tackles a season ago, 11.5 tackles for loss. I think he's a guy that can end up being an edge rusher on passing downs for them. So that'll be an interesting dynamic to watch. I mentioned UMass earlier and Tyson Pomachong. We want to see if they're going to be a legitimate, bowl contender. Can they get into a bowl game? They obviously will get a chance to prove it against Auburn. This Auburn team, this is a brand new coaching staff. Brian Harsin is gone. So in comes Hugh Freeze. The quarterback position, obviously is the big question mark there, but you're going to have Jarquez Hunter running the football. Defensively, there's a lot of guys that are going to be back, but if Pumachong and Anthony Simpson, if they are legit, we're going to find out early with that football game for sure. Georgia taking on Tennessee Martin. That game will be over by half. USC, I mentioned, taking on Nevada. Just want to see if that defense can really get things shored up for them. Colorado State taking on Washington State. There are two guys that I want to tune in and watch that game for. Colorado State, they've got Torrey Horton and Muhammad Kamara. Torrey Horton is a stud on the outside, a guy that can be a playmaker, over 1,100 yards through the air, 6'2", 180 pounds. Can he build that chemistry there with Clay Millen, quarterback, on the outside? Really the big question mark is that offensive line. They only have one returning starter. Can they keep him upright enough to be able to get the football to Torrey Horton? And then you have Muhammad Kamara, as I mentioned, 6'1", 250 pounds, 8.5 sacks a season ago. This is a guy that has a chance to rack up double-digit sacks and improve that draft stock a little bit. So want to see what they can do against Wazoo. Jake Dickert is back at the helm there for Washington State in the last year of Pac-12 play. Then there's the uncertainty with the program. But look, they've got a dynamic quarterback in Cam Ward, the running back Nakia Watson, running that football. The question mark's really going to be who's he throwing the football to. They've got a lot of veterans back. As I said, Jarrett Kingston's gone, but everybody else is back. I think Connor Gomnis, the center, is probably the focal point there. And then defensively, you've got Ron Stone Jr., you've got Brandon Jackson rushing the quarterback on the edge. David Gusta was a guy that stepped up and made some plays at the defensive tackle position. Linebackers, they've got to replace Deion Henley, so I think that's a place that they need to work on. But really the matchup is going to be Chow Smith-Wade going up against my guy Torrey Horton. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. You'll see Jaden Hicks and Sam Lockett on the back end as well. I think Washington State wins the game, but I think just matchup-wise, that's really what's going to be exciting for me. If Torrey Horton going up against Chaz Smith-Wade and Kamara going up against a veteran offensive line, if they can have big games, then I think that's going to bode well for their draft stock. Alabama taking on Middle Tennessee State. This is another game that I think is likely to be done by halftime. I think Bama, this is the right game, to break in a quarterback. They're going to be, it sounds like, with Jalen Milroe, Ty Simpson, and Tyler Buckner. That's going to be the question mark. You've got the weapons in Corey Brooks and Jermaine Burton at receiver, Kobe Prentice as well, Jace McClellan running the football, J.C. Latham, the right tackle, but you are replacing some guys up front, so that's going to be a question mark. Can they hold up? Latham obviously is going to be the stud at right tackle. He's a guy that has a chance to be a top 10 pick. Defensively, you've got Jaheim Otis up front, Tim Smith, but the question really is going to be, can Chris Bradwell help Dallas Turner in rushing the quarterback. Dallas Turner doesn't have Will Anderson Jr., so that's going to be the big question mark is can Turner continue to get to the quarterback with the frequency that he had when Will Anderson was there. Deontay Lawson, Tresman Marshall, new linebackers on the interior. And then Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold, Malachi Moore. You've got the veterans there on the back end of the defense. So I think defensively, you're in much better hands, especially, like I said, on the back end. If they can put the consistent pressure on the quarterback, then that's just really going to make things difficult to go anywhere with the football with those guys locking things down on the outside. Middle Tennessee, the guys to watch out for are the guys up front. Obviously, you lose Corian Patterson, you lose Jordan Ferguson, who was a guy that had nine sacks a season ago. But as I mentioned, you've got Zaylen Wood and Marley Cook. These are two guys. Zaylen Cook, big play potential, 6.5 sacks a season ago. Marley Cook, 9.5 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks. These are two guys, not the tallest, but guys that are very explosive, getting off the football and getting into the backfield. Then you have Teldrick Ross, 5'11" corner, and Trey Fluellen, the free safety at 6'2", 208. Those are guys that I think can fly around and make some plays. They've got some veterans on that defensive side of the football. I think they might be able to make things interesting. I just don't think that offense is going to have enough firepower, and Bama's going to pull away rather early. But again, I'm all about the matchups, and that's something that I think is going to be interesting to see just with some of those playmakers there for Middle Tennessee State. UNC taking on South Carolina. Spencer Rattler, Drake May, that's going to be the matchup to watch. Can Drake May build that chemistry with his receivers? Huge question mark there. With Spencer Rattler, which guy are we going to get? Are we going to see the guy that was connecting with Juice Wells early and often against Tennessee and Clemson, beating back top 10 teams back-to-back weeks? Or are we going to see the guy that threw double-digit picks at the beginning of the year? Big question mark, but we're going to be hearing Sandstorm playing because they're technically the home team, even though it's at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina. Huge atmosphere there. Tulane without Tyjae Spears. Really, we're going to see Michael Pratt and really see what this kid can do, what the talent level, can he improve that draft stock? That's going to be a big question mark. They're taking on a South Alabama team that had probably its best season at the FBS level. USA, they were 10-3, and they had some close losses. One point loss against UCLA, a 4-point loss against Troy, and then they lost in the bowl game 44-23. This was a team that had a chance to be, have a one-loss season. Carter Bradley's back, LaDamian Webb is back, so they've got the quarterback and running back. They've got some weapons there at the receiver spot as well, although Jalen Wayne is gone. But the two receivers, in yards and receptions, and Devin Voisin and Colin Lacey are back. And then defensively, Jamie Sheriff is going to be a guy that's going to look to put pressure on the quarterback. On the back end of the defense, you're going to have Yam Banks, the guy who is a playmaker for sure. A nickel, probably going to be a safety at the next level. 6'1", 208, only a junior. So I think that's a game that Tulane has to watch out for sure. Later on, you got UCLA taking on Coastal Carolina. UCLA is probably going to be starting Dante Moore, the fabulous freshman, and then Carson Steele, the running back from Ball State, a guy top 10 in the FBS in rushing. This is a dude who's just a bowling ball, just a buffed up back, guy that has some elusiveness to his game. He'll make you miss in the hole. Not as explosive in the open field, but a guy that he reminds me of Zach Charbonnet, because once he gets going, he's difficult to bring down. He's going to run through arm tackles, tremendous contact balance, can catch the football out of the backfield as well. Defensively for them, Leatu Latu is a stud coming off the edge, double-digit sacks, a guy that I think could be poised for first round, as long as the medicals check out. That's going to be the big thing. They're going up against Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. And now with Coastal Carolina, obviously, when you lose a coach like Jamie Chadwell, that's going to be that's going to hurt. You bring in Tim Beck, he's the head coach there, but Grayson McCall, it's his team. Three-time Sun Belt Conference Player of the Year, 78 touchdown passes, 18 on the ground, so he's responsible for 95 touchdowns. He gets his receivers back, all of them in Tyson Mobley, Jared Brown, Sam Pinckney, so they'll put pressure on guys like Kenny Churchwell and Devin Kirkwood on the back end. Devin Kirkwood, a ton of length, a 6'3 corner. You'll figure he'll be matched up with Sam Pinckney, the 6'4 receiver on the outside as well. They bring back Reese White and Braden Bennett, the running backs, and they're pretty experienced up front on the offensive line. Defensively, I think it's a different story. There are a lot of guys, a lot of new faces that they're bringing in. They're going to have to replace. Obviously, Josiah Stewart, losing him to Michigan is big. Stewart had 12.5 sacks in 2021, a guy that I think is primed for a big year. I didn't mention him when breaking down Michigan's defense, but I think Stewart is another guy to really keep an eye out for if he has a big year there in Big Ten play. That Josiah Stewart's a guy that could see his draft stock soar. Grayson McCall, though, I think he'll end up leading some drives there against UCLA. I just don't think this defense is going to be able to stop that UCLA offense. Then we get to Sunday. Sunday is interesting because obviously, there's Northwestern and Rutgers. That game, we could see one of the lowest scores of the season in that contest. I think that's two programs that are struggling for sure. Oregon State taking on San Jose State. Just mentioned San Jose State, Chevin Cordero on the offensive side of the football, and then defensively, you've got Trey Smith getting after the quarterback, and that quarterback is DJ Uiagalelei, looking to resurrect his career. Obviously what happened at Clemson, he struggled with accuracy, struggled with decision making, then struggled with his confidence, ended up losing the starting spot to Cade Klubnik. So now he's there at Oregon State, 6'4", 251, unquestioned leader of this offense, veteran offensive line, Damian Martinez, the power back, 6', 230 pounds. Martinez was, I believe, the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year a season ago. Joshua Gray is only a junior, but I think he could be a top 5 guard. And then Taliese Fuaga, 6'6", 325 at right tackle. He's a guy that could end up being a top 10 tackle in the draft. So really want to see how those guys match up against Trey Smith. And then defensively, obviously they've got some guys to replace, especially Omar Spates. Then you also have Alex Austin on the outside, Rajon Wright that you also have to replace. You do have Keaton Oladapo, the safety there on the back end of the defense. But this is a defense that I think can be exploited by Chevin Cordero. It's going to be an interesting game, and I think there's a good chance, depending on what happens there with DJ Uiagalelei, that San Jose State could pull off the upset. They're playing at home at CEFCU Stadium in San Jose. So, Brent Brennan, I think if they can win this game, that'll really help springboard them into Mountain West play. And then obviously the game to talk about is LSU and Florida State. Can Florida State repeat and upset LSU? LSU would be a minor upset, but LSU is ranked number 5 versus number 8 for Florida State. LSU, everyone's hyping up Jayden Daniels as really the quarterback that could challenge Caleb Williams for the Heisman Trophy. 17 touchdowns, just 3 interceptions, over 2,900 yards. The offense last year averaged 34.5 points a game, over 450 yards as well. Also rushed for 885 yards, which led the team in 11 touchdowns. So this guy, I think, he's become a much better pocket passer. He's someone that just consistency. You always saw flashes, but you never saw the consistency. This is the year that I'm waiting to see if he can finally put it all together. Another year with Brian Kelly. Is this the year that he takes a step and we can look at him and say, definitively that Jayden Daniels is a quarterback and not just a great athlete who happens to be playing quarterback? Can he put it all together? Can he show that he can, process things and be able to make plays? He's got Malik Neighbors on the outside. I think Fentrell Cypress against Malik Neighbors will be a fun matchup to watch. The offensive line is a veteran group. Will Campbell, only a sophomore, gets to go up against Jared Verse, so I think that'll be a really fun matchup for sure. The ground game, you got Josh Williams. They'll probably, running back by committee makes the most sense there. And when you look at Florida State up front, Fabian Lovett there at defensive tackle spot. Braden Fiske is a guy that I think is going to help push the pocket and collapse the pocket from within, which is going to allow Jared Verse to make plays coming off the edge. They've got the veteran linebackers in Kalen DeLoche and Tatum Bethune. They're going to be roaming around there. They're going to have to spy Jayden Daniels, make sure that he doesn't take off and run. And then the safeties, Shaheem Brown, Akeem Dent. I think there are going to be some playmakers on the back end looking to disrupt things in the passing game. Brian Thomas Jr., Kyron Lacey, and then the fabulous sophomore tight end Mason Taylor are going to be solid weapons there for Jayden Daniels. So it's not like the cupboard's bare or anything. They've got quite a few receivers. It's just going to be, can Daniels consistently deliver the football to them? Can Jared Verse, on the flip side for Florida State, put pressure on him? 6'4", 253. We're expecting double-digit sacks. Is that what we're going to be seeing? What are they going to be doing to try to help out? In chipping him whenever possible. I think Mason Taylor trying to take him on at times. But when you watch, Jared Verse, watch how he sets the edge against the run. I think that's another thing that really sets him apart. So, I think it's going to be a fun matchup, LSU offense against the Florida State defense. And then you get, and this is where I think Florida State is going to have the edge. You've got Jordan Travis, the quarterback, 6'1", 212. He's put on some muscle and a dynamic passer in his own right. 24 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, over 3,200 yards. Also had a decent gain on the ground, running the football. But then you've got Trey Benson, the running back, physical at the point of attack, 6'1", 221 pounds, 990 yards, and 9 touchdowns, 6.4 yards per carry. He's going to run through you, but then he also has the speed to run by you. So in that ground game, you're going to have Mason Smith, the defensive tackle, won't be playing in the game. So he's a guy. The health of Smith is going to be key up front. You've got Mekhi Wingo, Savion Jones, Ovio Ogufo on that defensive front. They're going to have their hands full trying to block, trying to bring down Trey Benson. Robert Scott, the left tackle, I think has to have a bounce back year. Athletic, but a guy that I thought got overpowered at times, and frankly was left leaning and lunging and bending at the waist too often. So I think he's got to improve. You've got Casey Roddick, a transfer that's playing left guard. Some experience there up front, though, at the center and right guard positions as well. Then you get the passing game. You get Keon Colden, 6'4", 215 pounds, looks like a basketball player in his own right there at Michigan State. But then you put him with Johnny Wilson, the 6'7", 230, 240-pound junior receiver, guy that I think averaged about 20 yards of reception, guy that just knows how to get vertical, get behind defenders. That's going to be a tough matchup for that secondary there at LSU. But Deuce Chestnut has that experience coming over from Syracuse, 5'11", 200 pounds. He's going to be a guy to watch out for. Same thing with Devin Harris, another guy that I think could be a ball hawk. You've got Major Burns, the strong safety, Greg Brooks, the free safety. Those are guys that are going to be lurking on the back end of the defense. And then, obviously, Robert Scott's going to really have to show that he can block Harold Perkins. Perkins is a guy that was wreaking havoc, especially towards the close of the season. Third on the team in tackles, 7.5 sacks to lead the team. A guy that just seemed to live behind the line of scrimmage. Only a sophomore now, 6'1", 220 pounds, but just so explosive. And that's the thing that's going to be a scary proposition for Florida State. Jordan Travis is athletic, but obviously you've got Omar Spates, the 6'1", 235-pound, all Pac-12 linebacker who's transferred in from the Beavers. He's a playmaker. He's instinctive, and you pair him up with what you've got with Harold Perkins, and then Greg Penn as well. Greg Penn is a guy that shows pretty good range and a heady performer for them. So I think the linebackers really are going to be the strength of this defense, and the back end of that defense isn't spectacular, but I think they're guys that are veterans. I think if they can establish the ground game with Trey Benson running the football, run at Harold Perkins and make him make plays. Jared Verse shows that he can set the edge against the run. Can Harold Perkins do the same thing? Don't run away from him. Don't allow him to use that speed to run down guys. That was the thing that I never understood. When teams would run away from like Barkevius Mingo or Kalavan Chase on there at LSU, run at him, and see if he can hold up. Obviously you've got Omar Spates you're going to have to contend with as well. But I look at this game, I think Florida State's going to end up winning the game. I really do. I think LSU, there's a lot of hype around this program. I think Florida State has so many weapons. They did a great job bringing in some transfers to fill in some key holes. I think Florida State ends up winning that game, which then takes us to Monday night. And Monday night, Wallace Wade in Durham, North Carolina is going to be rocking. Clemson comes to town to take on the Duke Blue Devils. Clemson, look, Clay Kubnik, I'm not overly impressed with Cade, so I really want to see what he can do. His receivers, Adam Randall, Antonio Williams, Bo Collins, I don't think there's really a guy that emerged a season ago as a playmaker, so I'm curious to see what that looks like. Honestly, you've got Garrett Riley, who is an offensive genius. We saw what he's able to do there at TCU. Can he build things up for Clay Klubnik? That's going to be the question mark. But the offense has to go through Will Shipley. He's got to touch the ball 20-plus times a game. Over 1,100 yards a season ago at 15 touchdowns. Such a dynamic back and a guy that can make plays in the passing game as well. 5'11", 205. The junior, just get him the football and allow him to make plays. You've got veterans up front, 4 returning starters on the offensive line. The one guy that you don't return is the left tackle, Jordan McFadden. But Marcus Tate and Walker Parks are veterans there at the guard spots, along with Will Putnam, the center, senior. He's the unquestioned leader at the pivot for Clemson. Duke, they return a lot of guys up front. R.J. Oben is the edge rusher for them. But then, I think the guy that you really have to be talking about is Dwayne Carter, a guy that has the ability to get into the backfield, 6'3", 303. Dorian Mausi is a guy that's also an athletic linebacker. So I think he's a guy that can be a presence there, not only in the ground game, but getting after the quarterback and being able to drop into coverage a little bit. And then you look at the secondary, really boosted by the additions of Miles Jones, a tall corner, 29 career starts, and then Al Blades from Miami. Those are 2 guys you bring into Mike Elko. It's going to be interesting to see how this defense plays, because I think the defensive front is strong. I think the secondary, there's a lot of veterans, even at the safety position. They run a 4-2-5. That's really what you're going to see out of this defense. Clemson offensively, I think Duke may be able to hold up against them. That's going to be the big question mark, though. Can they hold up? I think that'll keep things close. And then obviously the defense is Clemson's really their main strong suit. Obviously you've got Riley Leonard, the quarterback, a guy that I think a lot of people are expecting to see as a potential first rounder. I think he may be a top 4 quarterback in this year's draft, top 4 or 5, 33 touchdown passes. 33 total touchdowns, 20 passing, 13 on the ground, over 2,900 yards through the air, just under 700 on the ground, and just 6 interceptions. So really improving from a decision-making standpoint. 6'4", 209, very athletic. Jordan Waters is a veteran running back. He's got all of his receivers returning, plus his tight end, so there's some experience there. Chemistry's already built. He's got Graham Barton, his left tackle, protecting his blind side. The question I think is going to be, can they generate any type of a run game for Jordan Waters? You've got Ruka Roro and Tyler Davis, the defensive tackles. They're a couple of beasts. I think there's question marks at the edge rush spots for Clemson. But then you've got Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and Barrett Carter. They fly around and make plays. I think they'll be going sideline to sideline against that run game. Duke's going to have to get creative. I could easily see Clemson turning this into a one-dimensional Duke offense where they're having to put up the football up and air it out time and time again, which again lends back to who's going to be able to put pressure, consistent pressure on the quarterback. A season ago, Jeremiah Trotter, he and Miles Murphy led the team with 6.5 sacks apiece. So you need to have some edge rushers. Justin Maskell, Xavier Thomas, if he can stay healthy, who's going to put pressure on the quarterback. I think Nate Wiggins is a guy that could be a stud for them at the cornerback spot, 6'2", 185. Andrew Makuba, the strong safety, 6 foot, 185. He's another guy that I think can make plays, fly around, looks to hit some guys, and so I think the secondary, it's a veteran group. I think they'll hold up pretty well. There isn't an explosive receiver that's going to be necessarily a go-to. It's going to be more of a receiver by committee for Duke. I think the pass rush, where's it going to come from? That's going to be the big question mark. I don't see them really being able to run the football. I think you're probably going to see Riley Leonard as a guy that's going to get most of the yards on the ground, being able to vacate the pocket and take off and run. When you do that, watch out for number 0, Barrett Carter, because he flies around and makes plays. I think Clemson wins this game, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than a lot of people think. I think Duke, because of the veteran play on both sides of the ball, I think there's going to be a chance that they're going to be in it before Clemson finally does pull away. You can't be a one-dimensional team and beat a defense like Clemson, and I think that's ultimately what's going to happen, is they're going to be turned into a one-dimensional team. I could be wrong. We could be seeing a breakout year for Jordan Waters, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think ultimately we're going to see Clemson, and look, you're going to be seeing a showdown between Clemson and Florida State, likely for that ACC title. I mean, that's really what it's going to end up being. But that matchup is going to be on September 23rd. So we get to see that early in the season. So obviously these are two big games that are going to help kind of shape things up and really see who's going to have that first leg up going into the year. North Carolina taking on South Carolina. Where are they going to position themselves? And then there are a lot of question marks in the middle of this group. NC State, they won their game, but they didn't look spectacular. What's Miami going to be able to do? I think that could be the sleeper team. Want to see what they can do with that offensive line and Tyler Van Dyke up front. So that's going to be interesting to see that dynamic there in the ACC. So we've been able to go ahead and kind of put week 0 to bed, and we've also gotten through the Thursday night games with the exception of just one, and that's the Utah-Florida game. We'll get to break that down later on. Next podcast, we'll probably have to break it into 2 podcasts to get through all of the games over the first full slate of college football games. There are going to be a lot of games that I'm going to be watching, and so there'll be a lot of teams to break down, a lot of players to analyze, and make sure to bring that to you. And then obviously we'll springboard into week 2. But I do want to get to the group of 5. There are a lot of guys to make mention of. Plenty of guys that we'll be talking about come the pre-draft process as well. So that'll be something that we'll be sprinkling in here. And then as we go through the season, we'll have our conversations about the top players at each position. But really the focus right now is just kind of getting through these games and seeing what we have. There's a lot of speculation, a lot of assumptions based on performances a season ago. So let's see who's taking that next step. So until next time, everyone, for ReadyForTheDraft.com, this has been the Ready for the Draft podcast. I've been your host, Gregg Schutze. Take care, everyone. Enjoy the weekend of football. Until next time, bye.